Beams 7, 8 and 9 are relatively straightforward. There's nothing special about them. So in a real sense, I'm saving you going through the video unless you want to. But this is going to follow the same format that I've covered in terms of installing the columns and the ledges. The only exception is I'm actually trying to prepare more of them off the model so that when I go to install them, I don't have that difficult work of trying to create the recesses. Last video I did not show the feet that bolt the galley stove to the frame, and so here we are. I ignored the lower chimney section and soldered the top of the chimney. That will be adjusted based on the final placement of the foredeck, and this was darkened with pewter black rather than painted. The key to installing the various columns was to re-establish the center line, and I did this with the string tied to the center of the stern and to the stem, and then checked this against the physical center, and they were almost identical. I used the square to establish a hard line on it, and then used the protractor just to double check all the measurements to make sure that the distance was correct and to make sure that the physical center line between the two sides of the ship, that we ended up at the center line point, the hard line I had just established. Today we're putting in beam number 8, and we've put in the recesses, and we've done the same with the columns. This is the first time I'm doing this for all of the parts, the beams, the columns, and already I, for some reason, have to make some slight adjustment to the recesses on 2 of the columns. Hopefully I'll get a little better at this as it goes on. I did try to do this for the lodging knees, but it just kept moving around and I had trouble getting it to fit. So instead I decided to stick it in and go back to my old method. I did mark it a bit, and even that it moved a lot and it was a bit inaccurate. We have stuck beam 9 in. We've put the hanging knees on. We had established the recesses off the plan. So now we just need to fit the lodging knees. And now we can establish where the cuts are going to go. I cut the columns out on the table saw, and because the spacing is exact, they fit perfectly, and I've just shaped the ends. To my pleasant surprise, once I shaped the ends to put the little slant on each end, they actually fit perfectly. We're leaving the pre-arc blade just up a little bit. We're going to turn the piece on the side and just run it across and establish the center point on each of the columns. Now we take a square file and open up the groove to be able to take the thickness of the ledges, and we do that for each one on both sides, and then just go and stick them in. We can now stick them into the model. This is the first time I've actually got the ledges to line up. The spaces between the 3 spaces are not identical, but good enough. So now the challenge is to line up the recesses on the lodging knees, and I did this without them being stuck. Did it off the model, and once that dried, came and put the ledges in, and to my happy surprise, they have fitted perfectly and lined up perfectly. So that's really a good sign, and I have to say it was actually much easier to do it this way, and certainly much more gentle, obviously, on the model. So the sequence of events is different than this one. So we have cut off all the recesses in number 10, remembering that the recess going aft has to take a hatch, so it's not like this one exactly opposite it, slightly up further. Secondly, if you look at the columns, you will see they're not made up exactly the same. They're slightly different, the two end ones. So if you're preparing these off the model, the insides are exactly the same, here and here. And between these two columns, they're exactly the same. But on the inside where the lodging knees are, there's a very large ledge, almost the thickness, in fact it is the thickness of a column. But it's a triangular shaped ledge. It's in blue compared to the regular ledge, which is in yellow. So what we're going to do in terms of the sequence, having stuck the beam, we're now going to stick the columns, and then we're going to stick the inside ledges, then we're going to stick the slanted lodging knee, which is part of the opposed lodging knees, so they're opposed to one another. But you have to put the aft one first and then the forward one. As I suspected, the more I do this, the more accurate and the easier it is to do. Certainly, because everything is square and all the measurements are exact, making the columns and the ledges, I can cut them on the table and they fit almost perfectly. We're temporarily holding the first of the opposed lodging knee in, and it's the one at the back, the one that's on beam 10, and that looks pretty straightforward, so we're going to glue that in now. It's difficult to know what the exact angle is that this is supposed to be, but we do know that when we put the forward lodging knee in, it's going to come to about here, so it has to be really down here about 5.5 inches. The only way we're going to get these recesses cut correctly and not have to put a piece on it to line it up is really to take the measurement straight off from the side column and ledge, and that will correspond directly to the cut on this side, and the same thing for this one. And if we do that, we'll get the recesses on the ledge in the correct spot. Now that we've got the pieces cut, we'll stick it and see if we got it right. One of the great things about controlling your own movie is what you see is what is presented as the truth. So I still made some errors, and I'm not 100% sure on the port side why I made those errors, but certainly when I did the starboard side, I got it, I would say 90% correct. A very small filler piece, but it just goes on to say that if your work is 100% square center lines are the center. When you put your two beams together, that the spacing is exactly the same, you're going to actually be able to get a very good final finish. And that's where I've ended. So the message is, trust the math, trust the measurement of the tools, and just go to it, and there's no question we'll get better at it over time. But it's nice to make a video that's not 15 minutes long for a change. Again, I just like to restate that this whole process is a continuous learning process, and it's taken me a long time to have faith in the work that I'm doing. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier, that make sure that when you say 90 degrees, it's 90, it's not 91 or 89. And that's going to allow you that when you go to make a piece off-site and you put it on the model, it's going to fit perfectly. The same thing with the beams. The beams need to be exactly square. It cannot be a hundredth of an inch out, because that's going to skew everything, and that normally means an angle is wrong. So as we go on to the next beam, we're getting to the stage where it's the main mass fits between 11 and 12. And again, I'm happy to tell you that beam 11 lines up perfectly with the beam below it. So I'm getting better at this stuff. We'll see you in the next video. I hope you find these videos useful and not too boring. We'll see you.